Welcome, everyone. I'm Kari Weaver, and on behalf of Resilient Palisades, I'd like to thank you for joining us this evening for an important discussion on sustainable field management and the future of our community park. Tonight's program, Smarter Natural Grass, brings together experts in public health, environmental protection, and sustainable turf management. Together, we will explore evidence-based approaches to maintaining safe, resilient, and environmentally responsible natural grass fields. We appreciate your engagement and commitment to preserving the health of both our kids, our larger community, and our natural spaces. The first topic is health and safety, and I'd like to welcome Amy Griffin. She is a former World Cup champion playing for U.S. national women's team who has dedicated her career to coaching and developing young athletes, whether at University of Washington or with the U.S. Deaf Women's National Team. She's been raising awareness about the potential health risks of synthetic turf since 2009. Take it away, Amy.
Yay. Thanks, Carrie. And thanks everyone for being on the call. I I'm going to give you just a quick rundown of why I'm here, I guess, because that might help tell the story a little bit. But I had the luxury of coaching on the very same fields, at the very same place, with the very same demographic of athletes for 24 years. And for the first, and I went to Children's Hospital with our team to visit sick children. Every year, everything was the same. And for the first 16 years, I didn't know anyone personally, nor had I coached anyone um, of a young person, ages 8 to 19, that had cancer. And then all of a sudden, two goalkeepers that I coached who grew up playing on the same fields both had lymphoma. And so they were being silly. I mean, they were as bald as ping pong balls, and we were walking through this, just sort of this, it's called University Village. It's a shopping mall, and we were having lunch, and they had kind of started the conversation with, I wonder why us? You know, goalkeepers are crazy, and why us, and kind of being silly. And then someone says, well, I wonder if it's in like those black dots. That's what it started. Like, because we get them in our eyes and we get them in our mouth and in our sores, and they're everywhere. We take them home, and I wanted to make sure that it was safe. So I said, well, I'm sure it's safe. Um, Let me go find out. I work at University of Washington. Let me go ask the smart people, right? So I trotted up there, and that's what started it. They were like, no, this is a terrible idea. Those black pellets are made out of tires, and it only takes you 2 clicks to for a soccer coach to figure out that all the chemicals in the tires, including carcinogens, are very, very unhealthy, and you're not allowed to dispose of them. And there's a tax put on the tires, and there's no more tires in parks and rec. So anyway, the more I tried to prove that it was safe, the deeper the well was dug of how unsafe it was. And then that started in 2009. A couple years later, I knew a personal friend, and then my list grew to 13 people that I knew. And I grew up in the soccer world, so of course I know soccer people, right? And then that 13 turned to 21. And we do soccer camps, and so there are a lot of kids that come through our soccer camps, and I get to know them, and so they reach out to me. And so that I remember when it was at 9, I said, I'm going to keep a list. I'm sure this is just a weird coincidence, but I can't keep track of, I'm getting old. I don't have the memory I used to. I can't keep track of all these. But if I happen to bump into someone else I know, I'm going to start keeping a list. Well, that list has grown, and it's made national news, it's made international news. And not, what hasn't changed about that list that is now nearing 300 is is that 59 to 61% of soccer players on that list that are goalkeepers. And the reason I believe that goalkeepers are getting sick is because when you watch a soccer game, you just see the goalkeeper stand around and maybe make one or two saves. But at practice, they're hitting the ground, their faces and their shoulders and their head and neck are hitting the ground easily, at a lower level practice, maybe 40 times, and at a higher level practice, over 100 times. And even with young kids, with their hearts beating faster and inhaling the dots that I know 5% of those dots, get carried away. I know, and since then the PFAS and everything, like I said, everything I do to research how safe it is has told me how unsafe it is. Um, and like I said, I worked at University of Washington for that many years. Most of the I'm looking at my stats right now. Almost all of the cancers of that nearing 300, I haven't checked recently because I have a list, are blood-related cancers. And the average age of the people that are getting diagnosed are 12 to 22, which is way younger than the mean. There is a 14-year-old with lung cancer. There is everyone with lymphoma, their average age is 19. So, like I said, I'm the person that has this human interest story. I know all of these families. I've kept in touch with them. I've collected their data, and I'm sort of the keeper of this. No one else has done anything with this list other than the Department of Health, which they use my list. That's how scientific they were. They used my list in the state of Washington and said my list has all of the people that have ever had cancer and played soccer. That's how scientific it was. So anyway, I've been championing the story of these people that the train is off the tracks right now. There are so many more turf fields going in, and now they're being rolled up and thrown in some property somewhere up here in Seattle, near a place where they were recycling them, which was literally just in someone's farm near a river. They have realized that it was killing the coho salmon. And so they were sued for millions and millions of dollars. And, you don't mess with our salmon up here in Seattle. So again, I'm not a scientist, but when the data matches the stories, it's just so many red flags. There's no epidemiological study. No one has proven that it's safe. So that's where I am with that. So thank you for listening. And yeah, don't get me started.
Thank you, Amy. I really appreciate that. Um, I'd now like to welcome Dianne Woelke. Dianne is a retired advanced practice nurse and public health nurse and is currently a member of the board of Safe Healthy Playing Fields, which is an organization that supports communities by providing facts and science of why grass fields are superior to artificial turf.
Good evening. I want to give a shout out to Amy in particular because Amy, you bring the perspective of a player, of a coach, of a part of the entourage that brought equity in women's sports to the women's national soccer team, and also as an advocate for other abled athletes. I think you're amazing. Keep going.
Thank you.
I'm Dianne Woelke. I'm a board member of Safe Healthy Playing Fields. And what you're looking at here is one of 1 million square feet of Bermuda hybrid natural grass. This is at the Bell 94 playing fields in Scottsdale, Arizona. And later you'll see baseball fields at Talking Stick at Salt River, which is soccer fields. And between the two of these parks, they have 1 million square feet of natural grass playing fields. If they can do it in Scottsdale, we can do it here. All right, so at Safe Healthy Playing Fields, we're in support of banning synthetic turf playing fields. We're looking at nature-based solutions for use of desert and drought-tolerant Bermuda hybrid natural grass playing fields, using regenerative and organic management with zero emission maintenance equipment, which removes all of the complaints that the synthetic turf industry has about using natural grass fields. We also want to see warning signs at all of these fields. Currently, there are multiple organizations across California, as well as in other states, that are bringing attention to this issue. In California, the California Medical Association has a resolution about turning away from synthetic turf. And the Santa Clara County Medical Association actually has a policy statement. You can see that there are a multitude of other organizations, and this is just a short list. I have a much longer spreadsheet of organizations. Currently, there's growing discontent with synthetic turf across the United States. There are now, you can see under moratoriums, Massachusetts now has 5. There was another moratorium that was brought forth last week. There are currently multiple lawsuits going on across the country in regards to synthetic turf. And there's even an investigation by the European Union investigating what they refer to as the synthetic turf cartel. The California DTSC is bringing this product under regulation. This is what is being proposed for use at the park in the Palisades. This is actually the same product in San Jose, California. What you're looking at, the green blades, are actually loose synthetic turf blades. At the point in time that this video was taken, this field was only a couple of months old. And in Pasadena, this is another manufacturer's product. At the point in time I personally did this video, this particular field was 1.5 years old. And you can see if you go to these fields that these microplastics are building up everywhere. They are lost to air, water, and soil. Microplastics act synergistically with PFAS chemicals, forever chemicals, to cause cancers. And in fact, we know that synthetic turf has an age-related cancer risk now. Research is growing in this area. These fields are entirely too hot. They contribute to climate change. They off-gas methane, ethylene, and CO2. They create massive heat islands that are visible from satellites in space. And in fact, plastic contributes 4 times the greenhouse gas emissions that aviation industry contributes. Every field loses 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of microplastics per year, and that's just the blades. Blades have been found to constitute 12 to 15% of the microplastics in our waterways and oceans, and up to 25% in near surface waters. They also contribute to wildfire risk and landslides. They are impervious surfaces. These are some temperatures that were taken recently. The top left and right are the fields up in San Jose. Again, the same manufacturer that wants to put plastic in the Palisades Park. The lower bottom is a field that has crumb rubber infill. This was taken July of 2024 up in Los Gatos. And yes, the temperature reading was 200.3 degrees. Huge risk for thermal burns, and obviously, Amy, you know well, turf burns, the friction burns. This again is the same manufacturer that wants to install in the Palisades Park. This is a sportsplex that has had this product now for 5 years in Santee. On the left, you can see it's actually melting. And that was on a relatively temperate day. It was, I believe, 84 degrees that day in Santee, and you can see what the reading was. So this is actually in Santa Monica. Airport Park shows the heat island effect that's visible from space. But we also know, based on research that was done by researchers, including Dr. James Baird at UC Riverside, where they used high altitude aircraft with FLIR cameras. These fields are visible, not only synthetic turf fields, but they also compared them to natural grass fields that were within a half a mile, as well as lawns that use synthetic turf, as well as xeriscaping. And across the board, these things are hotter than natural grass and native plants. So this stuff is highly combustible. The industry is claiming that it's not ember or flame resistant. It absolutely positively is. This again is a field that the same product that they want to install in the Palisades Park was 1.5 months old when kids were either shooting off rockets or something. It's still under investigation. And yes, indeed, it releases incredible amounts of toxic chemicals. In fact, UC Davis researchers are going to be looking at synthetic turf as a source for hexavalent chromium and silver nanoparticles. that were found in the fire zones after the LA fires. Even if the industry were capable of getting rid of the PFAS chemicals in this product, there is a multitude of chemicals that are, again, highly toxic to humans, cause cancer. They're toxic to wildlife as well as to aquatic organisms. There is nothing eco-friendly about this product. It is, in fact, ecocidal. We know, again, from research that these fields contain, the one on the left is the research that shows a age-wise relationship to cancer levels. That is a very worthwhile research. If you're into research, some of us can't get away from it. It is definitely worth the read. Summer of 2023, there was a coach with his young daughter and her teammates that did a pilot study here in San Diego. And what they did was they took hand wipes, they cleaned the kids' hands with them after they played on natural grass fields, and they did the same thing after they played on synthetic turf fields. And even though they did find one of the over 16,000 PFAS chemicals on the girls' hands after playing on natural grass, in particular PFOS, it's the only PFAS chemical that was tested for. It was probably because they were playing on fields where they were using conventional management with synthetic pesticides and herbicides. They contain PFAS. Most of them contain PFAS. But when the kids played on the synthetic turf, the PFOS levels were significantly higher. This research has been replicated, and we're awaiting publication and peer review and publication of it, being done by the Casotis Lab at Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. That research lab also, on the far right, has conducted research, and the short version is they ground up used and new synthetic turf fields. They did this in conjunction with the Ecology Center in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And the short version of this is that these fields are highly toxic and disrupt endocrine system chemicals or hormones, as well as cardiac and metabolic systems. They expose these ground up products to human cell lines. There's also new research that I just read yesterday where, in fact, again, using human cell lines, looking at PFAS and microplastics, they are finding that they are highly toxic to kidney as well as liver cells. This is why we are seeing such an increase in childhood and adolescent cancers. The cancer rate has risen from between 1975 and 2015. It rose 50%, and currently we're at an overall increase of 35% in the last 45 years, increase in childhood and adolescent cancers. Synthetic turf is more dangerous. We've got student athletes, 9,000 a year with exertional heat illness. More and more kids are dying from heat strokes, and athletes of color are the most effective. Turf burns from plastic allow bacterial infections to enter these open portals through the skin. Multiple bacteria have been found on synthetic turf fields, including the potentially deadly methicillin-resistant Staph aureus. There's a higher incidence of high school sports injuries on synthetic turf compared to natural grass across all sports and all genders, significantly higher. We also have a much higher increase in concussions every year, with synthetic turf playing a huge role in this. Concussions are higher. Younger kids are at higher risk because they are closer to the ground. They don't have the musculature to break their falls, and they're much more likely to suffer concussions. Again, there's new research that just came out last week on this, and they're seeing repetitive brain trauma associated with younger and younger kids before they can even be diagnosed with chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which can only be diagnosed post-mortem. Okay, this product is not recyclable, not anywhere. The upper left, this is a massive dump site that was recently discovered this last spring in Riverside County. top row still, this is Saratoga High School field from the Bay Area being dumped on agricultural land in San Martin, California, and Santa Clara County. The middle picture is a site that is now shut down that was found in the high desert in San Bernardino County. One manufacturer is claiming that they're sending their fields to Oregon to have the crumb rubber beat out of them. And then once a quarter, they'll send some down to California to be chopped up and then shipped out of state to be burned theoretically at ExxonMobil. The middle on the left is actually a huge site on the Sacramento River. Below that is where one manufacturer claims to be recycling synthetic turf in Louisiana in Cancer Alley. We've spoken with the Department of Environmental Quality. They are not recycling. Middle bottom is there were 3 high school fields in Escondido that were dumped behind one of the high schools. And when they finally abated some of the weeds there, I was actually able to find this last spring. In fact, the rolls are rolling into the water. And a quarter of a mile away, up and around the corner, is a water treatment facility. Bottom right is a site that was discovered in New Jersey that we found through public records request. And when some advocates went to investigate, they found 3 fields, one from New Hampshire, one from Connecticut, and one from a New Jersey event center. Not recyclable on any level. Make no mistake about it. These are petrochemical products. I'm going to stop this here because we have other speakers who are going to speak to this issue. This was actually what I did for Santa Monica Democratic Club the other night.
Thank you, Dianne. I really appreciate you sharing all that research with us. That's a lot of data that you have actually collected for several years, and I appreciate you sharing all that with us. I will say that we can make links available to everyone after the webinar. We can send that out as well. Next, we have Kelly Shannon, who is the Associate Director of LA Waterkeepers, which serves as LA's water watchdog, safeguarding our inland and coastal waters, working to eliminate pollution and achieve ecosystem health.
Everybody, I'm so pleased to be here with you. Um, we've heard a lot tonight already about the human health concerns of artificial turf. Before I get into water quality specifically, I did just want to highlight a few of the contaminants of concern that we all should be worried about. And these are just a handful of contaminants of concern. Studies conducted by the US EPA have confirmed the presence of over 350 chemicals just in artificial turf's rubber crumb infill, and only half of those have toxicity data available. You've heard a lot about PFAS today. PFAS is something Los Angeles Waterkeeper has been studying, particularly in the Los Angeles River. We are finding that at alarming rates throughout our watershed. Heavy metals, especially found in the crumb rubber infill, includes arsenic, lead, zinc, cadmium, and chromium. Artificial turf is now being marketed in California as a way to give second life to tires that are currently sitting in landfills. And tires contain 6 ppd, which has been shown to have a near 100% mortality rate for salmonids when entering waterways. And we know very little about the health impacts on humans. And of course, microplastics. These are extremely difficult to clean from waterways. They make all of our drinking water more expensive when we have to start using reverse osmosis and other higher intensity filtration processes. And most of, if not all of these, are actually not being removed from our drinking water currently. The human safety impacts have been covered well tonight, but speaking about the water quality impacts, because artificial turf doesn't easily allow water to infiltrate into the ground, they produce a lot of stormwater runoff, which is full of the pollutants previously mentioned. That runoff goes into our storm drains and enters our rivers and ultimately our beloved Pacific Ocean. As the fields get older and degrade, a higher proportion of those contaminants can get discharged. And this is even more true as climate change driven extremes occur more frequently and is likely to see an increase in degradation, especially in our coastal communities. As we've all seen with our homes and our cars, the closer you are to the ocean, the more wear and tear there is. There's a huge drinking water connection too. If artificial turf fields allow stormwater to infiltrate into the ground, it becomes groundwater and carries those contaminants with it. Um, our drinking water is not currently being treated for PFAS or many of these contaminants of concerns. And so, in areas where there is drinking water supply and from coming from groundwater, that's not being treated well enough, like with PFAS, 6-PPD, you're going to see our drinking water get further contaminated. And then for all of us ratepayers, all of that cost to treat ultimately gets passed back to us. And very few, if any, artificial turf fields actually treat the water that's collected on site before discharging or infiltrating. And so, as we face more strain on our drinking water supply, more burden to ratepayers to address purifying our drinking water from these emerging contaminants. And as our ocean faces more stress from our fires, from ocean acidification, from harmful algal blooms, all of this is just contributing to this compound impacts. And there's a water supply fallacy here as well. You often see artificial claims that artificial turf saves water, and uses a lot less water than maintaining natural grass. But those artificial turf fields need to be cleaned. We've heard tonight that they can be, as much as 180, 200 degrees on a hot day. So they need to be cooled off. And so you're then contaminating potable drinking water, now turning that into polluted groundwater, polluted runoff. And if you have artificial turf that's been there for a while, it's compacting the ground beneath it, which leads to more injuries, but also acts as an impervious surface, just like concrete does, meaning more runoff and more pollution and more wasted potable drinking water. And so I'm really excited for you to hear from other folks tonight about the natural grass that could be organically maintained and would be a better solution for our communities. And I thank you all for being invested in this issue.
Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate you joining us tonight. And you had a lot of great things to offer us to think about. We're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to go into the next topic, which is sustainable field maintenance. And for that, I'd like to welcome Rika Gopinath. She is the Community Policy and Action Manager for Beyond Pesticides, which is a nonprofit that seeks to protect healthy air, water, land, and food.
That's great. Thank you so much, Kari, and thank you for organizing this. Can you all see my screen? Let's get rid of this little thing. Whoop. Okay, so I am going to invite everyone to reach out to us. And of course, Kari mentioned we will be collectively sharing fact sheets and things like that because we only have 1 hour. So we want to be mindful that there's only so much we can cover. I really want to introduce the framework that other speakers are going to get to, Rob and Jeffrey Beardsley, which we're lucky enough to have because they are practitioners. As Kari said, I work for a nonprofit. I work across the country with municipalities, and we offer an experiential learning program that works with cities and universities in 2-year projects where we do this. We teach staff how to transition to managing natural grass fields in a totally different way than I'm going to talk about. And it gets very different results than people are generally understanding in their local natural grass fields. So grass can be successfully grown and it can be done without synthetics. Here are the tough turf questions, and you're going to notice I'm taking back the word turf. It actually can mean natural grass. It doesn't necessarily have to mean artificial plastic. So tough turf questions. When we're thinking about artificial turf versus natural grass, one of the things Beyond Pesticides urges any decision maker as well as constituent and stakeholder to think about is real world use, not marketing, and not marketing promises about 24/7 use. I mean, do fields actually need to be used that much? And no maintenance and low cost to no cost. So look at real world use, and that is critical. And what I'm going to also cover briefly are some real world examples of natural grass athletic fields that succeed and can be the better alternative to artificial turf. So as Kelly just mentioned, potable water, especially with these newer types of fields that get rid of the really, as Amy pointed out, the really difficult and risky crumb rubber infill. But potable water is often required for some of these new types of infill that are organic material, not safe organic tested as in the certified food sense, but literally organic materials that need water to keep them um, you know, to be able to provide protection. The key other thing too is heat closures. We know artificial turf has to be closed when it's really hot, as Dianne Woelke also covered. And then the last most important things are high use means high maintenance requirements, especially impact safety testing. And unfortunately, we've been involved across California with a number of situations where artificial fields are unusable after just 3 or 4 years because they do not protect against impact. And they were causing concussions. So it's very critical that impact safety testing be included. And then lastly, don't let anybody tell you that pesticides aren't used on artificial turf. Disinfectants, as several people already mentioned, are usually required. And the other thing is the city of Irvine had a year in their annual report where they had organically managed natural grass fields that had zero pesticide use, and the only pesticide use was on their artificial turf field. And same thing with water. They were using reclaimed water in their natural grass and potable water on their artificial turf. That is a sad case that I don't agree with, because unfortunately their staff did not find that they wanted to lean into a newer kind of natural grass field management. So here's the key. Natural grass turf performance doesn't just depend on what you don't do. Like in the city of Irvine, they just stopped using pesticides, but they weren't doing anything different. And no surprise, they weren't happy with the results. Two things to keep in mind. Field construction matters. And what's amazing about what the Pacific Palisades has as an opportunity is your natural grass fields are gone. You have to start again, and what you can build can be so much better than the grass fields that were there before, with a far less expensive investment than putting in plastic fields. In artificial turf. So field construction matters. We're going to have Rob and Jeffrey both talk to that. And the second thing that drives performance of natural grass is maintenance, not just what you put into it in terms of investment, but as I've been alluding to, the technical paradigm. I'm going to go a little bit faster here, but the way we define the technical paradigm is not just the cultural intensity and what you put into it and what you put out of it, but really going back to that question of why does natural grass fail? This might look familiar to a lot of you, and I know Pacific Palisades Baseball Association wasn't happy with how their natural grass fields could hold up. And oftentimes those poor results are from compaction, poor drainage, poor soil quality, and then not having the right technical approach, or optimal technical approach, I should say, to maintenance. So how do we go from bare patches to premium natural grass? The key to changing the paradigm is moving from a chemical intensive and frankly very conventional, how most people are taught in landscape, use of synthetic pesticides and fertilizers. In fact, when it starts looking bad, the instinct is do more in, synthetic pesticides, or frankly, it's usually synthetic fertilizers. Here's the key. You can't just stop a little and expect it to get better. You can't just stop the pesticides and expect great results. You've got to switch the paradigm. And we can call it a lot of things, but here is how Beyond Pesticides defines it and how we have seen and other independent researchers have seen outsized success with natural grass. Zero synthetic fertilizers or pesticides, and changing the paradigm to focus on healthy soil. What that does by feeding the soil instead of growing grass blades with synthetic inputs, you start harnessing nature and the natural systems in soil biology, and it grows denser grass, deeper roots, so it needs less water over time. And best of all, especially for Pacific Palisades, where you're up on a bluff with this 2.7 acres of either natural grass, we hope, or plastic, organically managed or systems approach to natural grass, that soil and grass can absorb and retain more water. So not only does it take less irrigation, but it also helps reduce flooding. It filters water without contaminating it from plastic or anything else, and it goes back into the water table. I want to leave time for our other speakers, so I'm going to go a little bit faster. But the bottom line is this systems approach gets phenomenal results. And the best part is it's sustainable. Because it's harnessing nature, it gets better over time, both playability and the carrying capacity of that densely growing natural grass turf, but it also uses less water and less labor. We call it organically managed. You can call it sustainable, regenerative organic. The reason Beyond Pesticides calls it organic is because it has a defined system, but it really comes down to healthy soil biology and no synthetic pesticides or fertilizers. By the way, professional teams have figured this out. If you have ever been to San Francisco Oracle's stadium, where the Giants play, Greg Elliott has been doing this for, 5 or 7 years, and it's all about the soil biology. He's just been stolen away by the San Jose earthquakes because he is now going to be taking this soil biology approach to their soccer fields in time for the World Cup. So it's not just municipal settings that this can happen. It is possible in any kind of a budget. I'm going to leave a lot of this for the follow-up, but it is really critical for Pacific Palisades to think about the benefit that natural grass managed in this systems soil biology way can do, because it benefits the community, not just the kids who are playing on it. Last thing I want to touch upon before I pass it off to our last two speakers are case studies. Jeffrey's going to talk about the most relevant one that's close to you in Southern California, where there are three, more than that, but three specifically baseball fields that are managed with the same organic approach. But Marblehead, Massachusetts is one where they don't even have the winter season to count, and they are still getting easily over 2,000 hours of playability, and it looks great and holds up. Another one is Jefferson County in Colorado, where this complex with a soccer field and natural grass football field are serving not just one high school, but 6 and regional tournaments. They have never had to replace the grass sod, and the costs continue to drop over time. But that annualized use is easily able to meet what the Pacific Palisades was using before the fires. The last thing I want to leave us with is the cost comparison. When you're looking at that conventional approach versus organic management, over time, once nature kicks in, it uses, organically managed uses at least, in more recent cases that we're doing right now in 2-year projects, we're finding that the water savings are over 25%. We've got some projects right now that we want to publish next year that are 35 to 37% water usage, but the costs in labor and inputs also drop 25% over time. The most recent statistics I want to put in front of you is from a study in 2025 in the publication Sustainability, and it was the first and only study I've seen that compares artificial turf. It was a study for a city that was considering what to do with their aging artificial turf field. So they considered three options: replace it with more artificial turf, replace it with natural grass, conventionally managed with synthetic inputs, and natural grass organically managed. The recommendation they came back with was natural grass organically managed, which is that orange line there. Because over time, the cumulative cost, not just of building it, but maintaining it, is the lowest. And they also, of course, evaluated environmental effects. I'm going to leave it there. I will just stop us with one more thing. A lot of people were asking ahead of time about the average cost for this kind of organic land care approach. And on average, it is about $2,000 per acre annually. There are also really good examples of renovation that get phenomenal results. Of course, everything is site specific. So I think the important thing there is, please, we hope the decision makers will lean into the incredible resources that you have on this call, including some of the local ones that we're about to pass the baton off to, as well as Beyond Pesticides and myself. So with that, Kari, I'll hand it back to you.
Great. Thank you, Rika. Great information. Interesting to see about the cost of the water and it not being nearly as expensive as we thought. And it's actually less than conventional, right? And also artificial turf. Yeah. I also wanted to bring up BMO Stadium here in LA. They use natural grass. And I'm interested in speaking to Gage Knudsen because he's their field maintenance person there. But yes, so thank you very much. I appreciate all that. And we'll be turning it over to Jeff Beardsley. He is with Jeff Beardsley Consulting, which provides tailored consulting services specializing in agronomy and landscaping with over 30 years of experience at the highest level within the turfgrass, landscape, and property management industries.
Thank you again, and good evening to all the panelists and then all the attendees in attendance. Great to be here, and I know I'm new to you all, but I've been in the turf management business for over 30 years, specifically growing grass for country clubs. And I spent 25 years specifically through 2020 in Newport Beach, right alongside the Upper Newport Back Bay. So I'm very keen to the environmentally sensitive habitat that was below our golf course, and really put my programs in place from a sustainability standpoint over 15 years ago, and greatly impacted the condition of the golf course. But what I want to get into this evening is more specifically in the last 3 years, I've been working with a housing development here in South Orange County, and they have multiple soccer fields. They do have one synthetic soccer field, bunch of baseball fields, softball fields. When I started working with Chip and Vanessa with Osborne Organics, they had a 3-year study that they were working on at this property. And success or failure at this property really comes down to management and the leadership, and the lack of leadership and their commitment to being sustainable. It's frustrating, it's saddening, but when the marketing doesn't follow through with what's going on the ground, there's failure. But where I've seen success is similar to what Rika was saying. It was about the soil biology, and it really comes down to getting the soil right. Any turf condition is going to fail if the soil isn't right. So I took what Chip and Vanessa were doing, which is more of a top down, with adding humates and improving the carbon balance in the soils. I wanted to get in there and modify the soils. So I looked at their existing, and we'll get into some numbers as well. I looked at their existing turf program that they had, which included 2 aerations each year, 2 fertilizations using synthetic fertilizers, using post-emergent herbicides, and that was at a cost of 34 cents per square foot. They had 2 million square feet of turf that they were managing, but their cost was 34 cents a square foot for those cultural practices, as well as the mowing, the blowing, and the edging. So for 34 cents, that got you their maintenance program. I went in and added to that 2 additional aerifications, verticutting, sand top dressing, a pre-emergent program because I wanted to get the weed seeds out of the soil because they were just going through this constant cycle of dealing with post-emergent herbicides each year, having to spray them again, spray them again. Let's get down one application of a pre-emergent, stop the seed from coming back up, and then start to reduce your post-emergence. And after a 3-year program, eliminate the pre-emergence altogether because you've eliminated your seed reservoir. So that cost was an additional 14 cents to their existing program. So for 14 cents, I added the cultural program, which brought me to a total of 48 cents per square foot that the board there at this community signed up for. So 3 years into that, we found out we had a 65% increase in organic matter. We were having lower phosphate accumulation. The organic matter went up by 45%, and the organic matter content increased. So we were seeing some real nice improvement in the soil, the biology. I used the soil food web out of New York. We sent in samples to them, and again, we saw the soil biology just jump out of the ground. So we're super excited about that. So I wanted to take 1 second and talk a little about Pacific Palisades. And I understand they're at a $60,000 a year maintenance cost. That equates to around 55 cents. If my number's right, I had 2.74 acres, which is 107,593 square feet. So it looks like they're at around 55 cents a square foot for their maintenance cost. Now I have no idea what's in their number, and really need to dig into that because I'd like to know and understand better exactly how they've been maintaining the turf. Are they verticutting, aerifying? What is that 55 cents built on? So there's some more work to be done on that, and I look forward to getting into that and figuring that out. But from a organic standpoint, the cost to maintain is very much affordable. It's not as you hear from marketing campaigns that it's too expensive to have an organic managed system. That is absolutely false, and I've got years of experience to assist you all with that. Yeah, I think for right now, I think I'm going to leave it at that and leave it on for some questions.
Great, Jeff. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's really interesting. You did a lot of homework there, breaking it down by square foot cost for us. So I appreciate that. Um, and the last speaker that we have, moving on to the topic of smarter, greener sod, is Robert Sjoquist, and he is of Soil Solutions, which provides the best and most efficient solutions for drought tolerant, deep rooting, and native California grasses and ground covers, and also grasses specifically suited for playing fields.
Hi there, Robert Shook with Soil Solutions. I have been in this world for about 22 years. Started my company as a sort of a knee-jerk reaction to the conversion of California's ecosystems to non-native plants. Our mission statement says that if you look out your window, nothing you see really in terms of plants was there in the 1850s. And so we are trying to bring a pre-1850 sort of native ecosystem idea back as our main focus. But as part of that, we've partnered with a number of the largest sod farms in California to test and develop these different native grass sods that take anywhere from 50% to 80% less water and care and maintenance, but also working with them on specialty sods for high play areas, sports fields, etc. And the 2 largest farms we work with have very large turf management departments where they come in and take out fields and put in fields. And when they're forced to, they'll work on an artificial turf field. They all kind of hate it, but as part of all of that, I get to rub elbows with some of the best and largest folks around that do, like when the Dodger Stadium needs replacement, or Angel Stadium, or Petco, or Levi Stadium. They're all heavily involved in all of those those large grass fields, and some synthetic fields that, like UCLA practice fields and USC practice fields, half are synthetic turf and half are real grass. And so I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that the cost, starting from just bare dirt, to put in an artificial turf field compared to a natural grass field specifically designed for the use that it's going into and the environment that it's going into, it's about 10 times. The initial cost is about 10 times higher to do artificial. And every single statistic I've seen does not bear up with the time that I've seen of artificial turf fields lasting. They say 12 to 15 years of regular to heavy use. I've never seen over an 8-year field that was worth even walking across, let alone trying to play a high pace sport on. So that's coming from that perspective. There's also the huge problem of artificial turf fields basically do not allow any water infiltration. So the water banks in the ground beneath them, as well as in the surrounding areas, are completely depleted in almost no time at all. And when you tear out an artificial turf field and you replace it with a natural grass field, there's a significant cost because you have to tear out not only the field, but the surface below it and the sand and other compacted mechanisms that they use to keep those fields firm enough that athletes can play on them. And so replacing is just it's so much higher cost than replacing a natural grass field. It's not even funny. So I was asked by the panel to put together a list of grasses particularly suited to the sports fields there in Palisades, and especially in Palisades where predominantly the soil conditions are what we call a coastal Mediterranean soil. It's a very, very, very organic, very healthy. The subsoil has just miles and miles and miles of beneficial bacteria, fungi, and other organic materials to feed a nutrisystem. I say to a lot of people that I first meet, have you seen the movie Avatar? Because Avatar is happening every day in California. We have very, very high organics in our soil, and especially the situation with the hilltop bluff type area where the runoff from this fields affect just a whole bunch of other surface and earth areas downslope and around. We really kind of have to be a little bit even more watchful of what we're doing with these fields because they're the start of a whole ecosystem trickle down that goes obviously right out to the Pacific Ocean. And this whole idea of these microplastic blades and PFAS and all the different things that are in these fake grass artificial turf fields, it just boggles my mind that we're even thinking about it. For all of those reasons. And what I've been involved in over 30 city council and neighborhood watch and neighborhood management organization meetings talking about the pros and cons of all of this. And usually there's artificial turf people there. And I always ask, can you give me one good health reason for putting in your product? What is a health benefit to humans or large mammals or even lizards for putting in your material? And they can never do that because there isn't any. They say, well, it's not detrimental. It doesn't use as much water. It doesn't use as much whatever. But all the previous panel experts have reiterated the fact that properly maintained and cleaned and cleansed fake grass fields require a ton more activity and cost. And all of what you do on them has to be contained on site because it's so toxic to surrounding groundwaters and water basins and even subsurface collection areas as to just once again use the word crazy. And I don't think that we're taking into consideration the fact that a natural grass field, even if it's poorly maintained, is so much more beneficial to just the human condition and human health. A lot of people don't know that every time you mow an area of grass, there are chemicals released into the world. You smell it as a mowed grass field. We all know what that smells like. And for most of us, just even the memories of that and the feeling that it gives you are wonderful. But it's also part of our biology. We can sense the CIS3 hexanol chemicals and the green leaf volatiles that come off of these cut grass fields all the way down to 0.25 parts per billion. They're one of the most the smallest particle size for the amount of reception into our systems that there is in the world is a feeling of cut grass. And I always use as the example, a lot of people don't know this, but in the plant world, like a field of corn or a field of alfalfa or any of the common wheats, if a certain caterpillar or predatory insect comes into those fields, those plants, by their biology, immediately begin to emit chemicals. And those chemicals are specifically designed to attract the animals that feed on those caterpillars or those predatory insects. So they bring in wasps, they bring in certain bird species that pick up on this chemical release from these plants to say, hey, there's food over here, come get it, and that food is attacking us. Well, that's the plant system, and when we put down this plastic, high heat, no water infiltration, need for chemical cleaning, injury prone material, it's just absolutely, to me, it's absolutely insane. I don't even know why we're having the conversation, but I understand we have to, because these turf people, are out there, and about the only benefit to their, bottom line and their pocketbooks. I liken it to the tobacco industry in the 60s and 70s, where they had studies. They had lots of university studies saying that tobacco was good for you. It had a calming influence. Nicotine, taken in through smoke was beneficial to your lungs. And it turns out it was all a big total sham, scam, and totally against the truth and the real biology. And it took quite a while for that ship to turn, but that it did turn, and it's still turning. But we're at the very start of that with these products, this fake grass and artificial turf. The studies are now coming out, more and more and more every day. 10-year, 15-year, 20-year study, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 athletes. I don't know how many of you saw the football game 2 weeks ago in Pittsburgh, where the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Aaron Rodgers, after the game said, I am never going to play in this stadium again if you don't get that plastic grass out of here and put in turf. And literally 3 days later, they brought in a natural turf field. They watered it, prepped it for just only a few days. And then they had a high school football championship, a college football game, and a Steelers game in that stadium within a few weeks of the new grass going in. And it did get torn up, but it was very repairable, and it was much more playable, even torn up, than the turf that had been in there just a couple weeks earlier. And there's just story after story after story of that. And no one has really touched on the injuries. NCAA, the NFL, MLB, they have all done now their long-term studies of athlete injuries, knees, hips, from the fact that the artificial turf just doesn't take a cleat turning sharply, under a biped human, doing a strenuous exercise, unlike natural grass, which gives and pushes back and allows for a much, much, much more natural interaction between ground and human. So there's just so many reasons, and I have 20 different sod varietals that we can use. And each one is dependent on sun and on winds and on pitches and on what's upslope, what's downslope. They've all been specifically designed. You have to understand that the natural grass industry around the world, especially the United States, it's $1 billion, $1 trillion industry. Universities all over especially Southeast US, compete every year with the best, newest hybrid Bermudas and hybrid bent grasses and what have you, to have the lowest water use, to have the shortest winter dormancy, to have the best play potential and repair. It's just the market forces them to do that, and that doesn't happen at all in the artificial turf industry. They don't want to touch their formula because they're getting in their chemicals and their plastics and their rubbers from these sources and doing what they do over and over and over again. And I know every 6 months they say, oh no, now we're using corn husks instead of rubber infill. Well, guess what? The corn husks break down 30 times faster than the rubber infill does. The fields need to be replaced sooner, and the fields become less safe because the surface isn't as solid and hard play. So there's a lot to this. I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to all of us, and I plead that you take into full consideration what everybody here has said. We're just really kind of on the tip of the iceberg of the issue. There's much deeper places to go. What another just quick comment is in California now, any parking lot or even driveway over a certain size has to have a biofiltration filtering grass all the way around it before water's coming off of those can transfer into the common drainage systems. Why isn't that something around artificial turf fields? The toxicity from the sweat and the blood and the pus and everything of players playing on them, especially on hot days, and then they come rinse them off if they even do that. That water is just is horrible, absolutely terrible. And there's no specification I've ever seen for their having to put any kind of a filtering system around those fields or contain any of those contaminated water. So there's a whole bunch of work to be done there, if even proceeding with a plastic grass field is even still under consideration. So I really urge you to look at the total costs of what they're saying compared with the total cost of people with quite a bit of knowledge and experience on this side are saying. And there's just really only one answer, and that's to find a good, suitable, quality turf product, prepare the ground in the correct and most functionally organic way, and then continue with the maintenance program that's very uh, uh, um, friendly to nature and the natural environment and the natural conditions and cycles that are here, and been here for millennia. And so with that, I'll close and open up for questions, I guess, because I think we're out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much. Yes, so it's 7:35, and I know we promised you that we would be done at 7:30. If you have any questions, we can take questions now if you want to remain on the call. If not, we can follow up with a fact sheet for everyone. Not seeing any questions. Sounds like we covered everything, guys.
Yeah, I can't believe it, an hour. Wow.
You guys did a great job. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone. And again, I want to thank all of our speakers, everyone on the panel who came tonight and talked about their area of expertise. And yeah, we will follow up with a fact sheet. Thank you very much.